All right, welcome to our deep dive. Today, it's all about how to absolutely crush it in a social services manager interview.
Really excited to be here.
So think of this as your personal guide to acing that interview and landing your dream job in social services. And luckily for us, we have an expert in the field joining us today who's going to help us break it all down.
Excited to share what I know so you can really put your best foot forward.
Awesome. So to guide our deep dive, we've got three fantastic resources: a career guide to give us that big picture overview, an interview guide packed with those tough questions and how to hit those answers out of the park. And then we're also going to be looking at how RoleCatcher's AI can give you that extra edge in tailoring your responses.
That sounds like we've got everything we need. Let's dive in.
Okay, so let's jump right into this interview guide. It is chock full of common questions that social services manager candidates can expect.
Preparation is key. The more you practice, the more confident you'll be in that interview.
Absolutely. So let's start with a question that I think often trips people up. How did you first become interested in social services? Seems simple, but there's definitely a right and a wrong way to approach this one.
Yeah, you don't want to just give a generic answer like, I want to help people. Think of a specific story or experience that really sparked your interest. Maybe it was a volunteer experience, a personal encounter, or even something you read that opened your eyes to social injustice. Make it personal.
Yeah, like you're giving them a glimpse into your why, what's driving you. Now imagine the interviewer follows up with, what specifically about that experience resonated with you? Or
Yeah.
how did it shape your understanding of social work values?
Exactly. Be prepared to discuss that deeper meaning behind your story.
That's a great point. Okay, let's shift gears to a question about professional development. How do you stay up to date on the latest trends and developments in social services? This one feels pretty straightforward, but how can we make our answers stand out?
Yeah, it's all about showing that you're actively engaged in your field. Mention a variety of sources, professional journals, conferences, relevant podcasts, show that you're committed to continuous learning. You could even mention recent discussions around incorporating telehealth into social work practice.
Oh, wow. Mentioning something specific like that definitely demonstrates that you're on top of things.
Absolutely.
And while we're on the topic of staying current, let's talk about a question that assesses leadership skills. How do you motivate and manage a team of social services professionals?
This is where you showcase your ability to inspire and empower your team. Talk about setting clear expectations, providing regular feedback, recognizing achievements. Highlight your ability to create a supportive and collaborative work environment. You can even mention your experience with team-building activities or professional development initiatives.
It's about painting a picture of a positive and productive team culture. Now, building on that, let's say the interviewer throws in, can you share a specific example of how you've successfully motivated a team member who was struggling?
That's a great example of a follow-up question that digs a little deeper into your leadership style. Having a specific anecdote ready to go will really make your answer more compelling.
It's all about showing, not just telling. Okay, let's move on to a question that I think often makes people a bit nervous. How do you handle difficult or sensitive situations with clients or colleagues?
This one is all about demonstrating your conflict resolution skills and your ability to remain professional under pressure. The key is to focus on active listening empathy, finding common ground. Don't just list techniques, share a specific example of how you successfully navigated a tough situation in the past. Explain the context, your approach, the positive outcome.
And wouldn't it be powerful to tie this back to those social work values that we were discussing earlier? Show how your actions really reflected those values.
Absolutely. That adds depth and shows your commitment to ethical practice.
So now let's imagine they ask, what was the most challenging ethical dilemma you faced in your work, and how did you approach it?
Be prepared for those curveballs. Think about a challenging situation that tested your ethical boundaries. Explain your thought process and the steps you took to resolve it.
It's like they're trying to get a sense of your moral compass, your ability to navigate those gray areas.
Exactly. They want to see that you can make sound judgments and stand by your principles.
Okay, let's tackle another question that often trips people up. How do you prioritize tasks and manage your workload as a social services manager? Time management's crucial in this role.
It is essential. Be ready to discuss specific strategies you use to stay organized and manage your time. Effectively mention tools like to-do lists, project management software, maybe a specific prioritization framework that you follow. Show that you have a system in place.
Right, it's not just about managing your own time, but also delegating tasks appropriately and empowering your team.
Absolutely. And a potential follow-up question there could be, how do you determine which tasks to delegate and to whom? Be ready to discuss your delegation process and how you ensure accountability.
Yeah, these follow-up questions really dig deep into those practical skills. Now, this next one is a bit more conceptual. How do you measure the success of your social services programs or initiatives?
This is all about demonstrating your understanding of program evaluation. Mention concrete metrics, client satisfaction surveys program, outcome data cost-benefit analyses, and how you've used data to drive program improvement.
It's not just about collecting the data, but analyzing it and using those insights to make informed decisions.
Precisely. You want to show them that you're data-driven and focused on achieving tangible results.
So what if they ask, can you share an example of a time when you used data to improve a program or service?
Have a specific example ready. Explain the problem you were trying to solve, the data you collected, the analysis you conducted, the specific changes you implemented based on those insights.
It's all about showing them that you can walk the walk when it comes to data-driven decision-making.
Exactly. And that segues perfectly into a tool that can help you do just that, RoleCatcher.
It was just about RoleCatcher. It's incredible how AI can now be used to prepare for these types of interviews. Can you explain a bit more about how RoleCatcher can help?
RoleCatcher's AI analyzes those complex job descriptions and identifies the key skills employers are looking for. It then provides feedback and suggestions on how to weave those skills into your interview answers.
So it's not just giving generic advice, it's actually helping you tailor your responses to the specific job you're applying for.
Exactly. It's like having a personal career coach by your side, guiding you every step of the way.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground already, but I want to squeeze in one more question from this guide before we move on. How about this one? How do you ensure compliance with regulations and policies in social services? Compliance is non-negotiable in this field.
Absolutely crucial. Demonstrate your understanding of the importance of following regulations, having systems in place to make sure your organization is always in compliance. Mention strategies, attending training sessions, subscribing to industry newsletters, consulting with legal experts, implementing regular audits.
And it's not just about staying informed about regulations, but also making sure your team is following them as well.
Absolutely. Highlight the importance of regular staff training, clear communication of policy changes, having a system for reporting and addressing any potential violations. You could even mention a specific time when you had to address a compliance issue and the steps you took to fix it.
That's a great point. Now let's imagine the interviewer follows up with, what's the most challenging regulation you've had to implement and how did you approach it?
Be ready to discuss a specific regulation that posed a challenge and explain how you navigated it. This shows your ability to apply your knowledge in real-world situations.
It's all about demonstrating that you're not just aware of the rules, but also capable of implementing them effectively.
Welcome back to our deep dive into acing that social services manager interview. We've already tackled some challenging questions, but we're just getting started.
Yeah, there's so many nuances to this role, and these interview questions really make you think critically about how you approach them.
They do. And remember, it's not just about providing the right answers. It's about showcasing your thought process, your values, your ability to really apply your knowledge in real-world scenarios.
That's such a crucial point. Okay, let's jump back into this interview guide with a question that focuses on collaboration. How do you collaborate with other organizations or stakeholders in social services?
Collaboration is key in this field. Social service organizations rarely work in isolation. Highlight your experience building relationships with other agencies, community leaders, funders, even government entities. Think about specific examples of successful collaborations you've been a part of.
Right, and don't just focus on those formal partnerships. What about those informal relationships you've built with key stakeholders? Those can be just as valuable.
Absolutely. Maybe you've worked with a local church to provide meals for families in need, or partnered with a community center to offer after-school programs. Those types of collaborations really demonstrate your ability to think outside the box and leverage community resources.
It's all about building that strong network of support. Now let's imagine the interviewer asks, can you describe a time when you had to resolve a conflict with a partner organization? How did you approach it?
This is where those conflict resolution skills come into play again. Be prepared to discuss a challenging situation. You encountered the steps you took to find a solution that worked for everyone. Focus on open communication, empathy, a willingness to compromise.
It's about finding that win-win even when it's tough. Okay, let's switch gears to a question that often throws people off. What are some of the biggest challenges facing social service organizations today, and how would you address them?
This question is testing your awareness of the broader social service landscape and your ability to think critically about system-level issues. You could discuss challenges like limited resources, bureaucratic red tape, the growing demand for services, especially given, recent economic downturns.
It feels like those challenges are constantly evolving too. How can we show that we're thinking proactively about solutions?
That's a great point. Instead of just listing the problems, offer potential solutions. Talk about advocating for increased funding, streamlining those bureaucratic processes, exploring innovative service delivery models like incorporating technology to reach more clients.
So it's about showing them that you're not just aware of the problems, but you're actively thinking about ways to make things better.
Exactly. And if you can connect those solutions back to your own experience or areas of expertise, even better.
Speaking of expertise, let's dive into a question that allows you to showcase yours. How do you develop and implement new social service programs or initiatives?
This question is a fantastic opportunity to highlight your creativity, your problem-solving skills, your leadership abilities. Walk them through the process from identifying a need in the community to conducting research, developing a program plan, securing funding, implementing the program with a strong evaluation component.
I'm curious, what's a common mistake people make when answering this question?
Sometimes candidates get so caught up in the details of a specific program, they forget to highlight the transferable skills they used. Remember, the interviewer is looking for evidence of your ability to think strategically, manage projects, lead teams.
So even if that specific program you're discussing isn't directly relevant to the job, the underlying skills are.
Exactly. Now, let's say the interviewer follows up with, what was the biggest obstacle you faced in implementing a new program, and how did you overcome it?
That's a tough one. It feels like there are always obstacles when it comes to launching new initiatives.
There are. Be prepared to discuss a specific challenge you encountered and how you used your problem-solving skills, your resilience, to find a solution. This could be anything from navigating bureaucratic hurdles to managing unexpected budget cuts.
It's all about demonstrating that you can handle those curveballs and still achieve your goals. Okay, let's shift to a question that explores your commitment to diversity and inclusion. How do you ensure that your social service programs are culturally responsive and inclusive?
This question is incredibly important, especially as our communities become more and more diverse. Highlight your understanding of cultural competency, the importance of representation, your experience working with clients from diverse backgrounds.
So it's not just about saying, I value diversity. It's about demonstrating that you have a deep understanding of what that actually means in practice.
Precisely. Talk about specific strategies you've used, like providing language support, incorporating cultural considerations into program design, or actively recruiting a diverse staff. You could even mention any relevant training or certifications you have in cultural competency.
It's about showing them that you're not just talking the talk, but walking the walk when it comes to diversity and inclusion. Now, what if they ask, can you share an example of a time when you had to adapt a program to meet the specific needs of a cultural diverse population?
Be ready to share a concrete example that shows your ability to be sensitive to cultural nuances and tailor your approach accordingly. This could involve anything from modifying program materials to partnering with community organizations that serve specific cultural groups.
It's about showing your flexibility and willingness to go the extra mile to ensure your services are accessible and relevant to everyone. Speaking of going the extra mile, let's revisit RoleCatcher and how it can help you prepare for these types of questions.
RoleCatcher's a phenomenal resource. Remember, its AI can help you identify those key skills employers are seeking and weave them into your answers in a way that really resonates. It can also provide feedback on your responses, make sure you're hitting all the right notes.
It's like having a personal editor for your interview responses. But RoleCatcher goes beyond just interview prep, right?
Absolutely. Let's dive into that Get Discovered feature I mentioned earlier.
Yes. I'm really intrigued by this. Can you explain how it works?
It's a fantastic way to get your profile in front of employers who are actively seeking candidates with your skills. If you opt in, employers registered on RoleCatcher can search for potential candidates based on their experience, their skills, even their career aspirations.
Wow. So it's not just about passively applying to jobs online. You're essentially putting yourself out there for employers to find. It flips the script on the traditional job search process.
Exactly. It's like a curated matchmaking service for job seekers and employers. It allows you to showcase your unique qualifications to a targeted audience.
That's incredibly valuable, especially in a competitive job market like we have today. And we are back for the final part of our Social Services Manager interview, Prep, Deep Dive. I hope you're feeling really confident, ready to tackle those interview questions.
Me too. We've covered a lot of ground, but let's make sure we've given you everything you need to really shine in that interview.
Perfect. Now, we've been laser focused on these tough interview questions, but I want to circle back to the career guide for a moment. It outlines sort of a typical career path in social services, starting with, roles like social services assistant and eventually leading up to those manager positions. What are your thoughts on navigating those early stages and setting yourself up for a leadership role down the line?
Yeah, those early roles are so valuable. Focus on soaking up as much knowledge and experience as you can. Take the initiative to shadow senior staff, volunteer for challenging projects. Really immerse yourself in different areas of social work practice.
Like, be a sponge. Just absorb everything you can. And what about seeking out mentors during those early stages?
Mentorship can be huge. Having someone to guide you, offer advice, provide feedback can make such a difference. Don't be afraid to reach out to experienced professionals that you admire and just ask for their insights.
It's all about building those connections and learning from the best. The career guide also touched on specializations within social services. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, as you gain experience, you might find yourself drawn to a specific area of social work, like child welfare, mental health, substance abuse. Gerontology specializing allows you to develop a deep expertise in a particular field and really positions you as a sought-after expert.
So it's about finding your niche and becoming that go-to person in that area. I imagine that kind of specialization can open up doors to some really unique leadership opportunities.
Absolutely. It can also lead to roles in program development, policy advocacy, research within your chosen field.
That's fantastic. Okay, before we wrap up our interview prep, let's squeeze in one more question from the guide. It's a bit of a curveball. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? This question always kind of throws me off.
I know it can feel tricky, but it's a great opportunity to demonstrate your ambition, your career goals, how the specific role fits into your long-term vision.
So should we have like a specific job title in mind, or is it more about just outlining our aspirations?
It's more about articulating your professional growth trajectory. You could say something like, in 5 years, I see myself leading a team of dedicated social work professionals, developing innovative programs, and advocating for policies that improve the lives of vulnerable populations.
That's a great example. It's ambitious, but it's also grounded in the realities of the role, and it highlights your commitment to the field. Now, what if the interviewer probes a little further and says, what specific steps are you taking to achieve those goals?
And that's where you can mention, your commitment to professional development, your pursuit of, advanced certifications, your involvement in professional organizations. You can even tie it back to RoleCatcher and how you're using it to actively seek out opportunities that align with your goals.
That's a perfect segue back to RoleCatcher. It's been a recurring theme throughout our discussion. It's incredible how this platform can really support you at every stage, from prepping for those interviews to actively pursuing those career advancements.
It really is. It empowers you to take control of your career journey and make informed decisions.
Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to that Get Discovered feature one last time. I think it's such a valuable tool for job seekers, especially those looking to really advance their careers. Can you give us like a quick recap of how it works and why it's so beneficial?
Absolutely. It's essentially a way for employers to find you. If you opt in, your profile becomes visible to employers who are actively searching for candidates with your specific skills and experience.
So it's like you're putting yourself on the radar of potential employers who are specifically looking for someone like you.
Exactly. It takes the guesswork out of job searching, allows you to connect directly with employers who are a good fit.
I love that. Okay, as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of social services manager interviews, do you have any final words of advice for our listeners?
This field is all about compassion, dedication, a commitment to social justice. Let those values really shine through in your interview. Be authentic, be prepared, and believe in your ability to make a difference.
Those are fantastic words of wisdom. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure. I wish all our listeners the best of luck in their job search.
And don't forget to check out those resources that we mentioned, including that comprehensive career guide, the interview guide, and of course, RoleCatcher. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into a fascinating topic.